Carl Jung, why love hurts so much. Have you ever wondered why the person you love the most can also cause you the deepest pain? Why does love, something so beautiful and essential to human existence, feel like it's tearing you apart from the inside? Carl Jung, one of the most brilliant minds in psychology, spent decades unraveling this mystery, and what he discovered will completely change how you understand love, pain, and relationships forever. If you're ready to discover the hidden psychology behind why love hurts so much, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because this video will reveal secrets about love that most people never understand. Picture this. You're in love, deeply and completely. Your heart races when you see their message. Your world lights up when they smile, and suddenly, life has meaning in ways you never imagined. But then something shifts. Maybe they don't text back as quickly, maybe they seem distant, or maybe they do something that triggers a pain so intense it feels like your chest is being crushed. Sound familiar? Jung called this phenomenon the shadow side of love, and it's not just about heartbreak or rejection. It runs much deeper than that. According to Jung, every time we fall in love, we're not just connecting with another person. We're confronting the deepest, most hidden parts of ourselves. We're entering what he called the psychological underworld of human connection. But here's where it gets fascinating. Jung believed that this pain isn't a bug in the system of love, it's a feature. The hurt you feel when you love someone isn't evidence that love is broken or that you're doing something wrong. It's actually your psyche's way of forcing you to grow, to evolve, and to become more complete as a human being. Think about the last time love caused you pain. Maybe it was when your partner criticized something you thought was perfect about yourself. Maybe it was when you realized they had needs you couldn't fulfill, or when you discovered parts of their personality that challenged everything you thought you knew about them. Jung would say that in those moments, you weren't just experiencing relationship conflict, you were encountering what he called your unlived life. Jung discovered that when we fall in love, we don't actually fall in love with the person standing in front of us. We fall in love with what he called projections, parts of ourselves that we've lost, forgotten, or never developed, that we unconsciously see reflected in our beloved. This is why love can feel so magical and overwhelming at first, but also why it inevitably leads to disappointment and pain. Let me explain this with a story Jung often told about a patient of his. This woman came to him devastated because her perfect husband had revealed himself to be selfish and inconsiderate. She couldn't understand how she had been so blind to his flaws. Jung helped her realize that she hadn't fallen in love with her husband at all. She had fallen in love with her own capacity for generosity and kindness that she saw projected onto him. When we project positive qualities onto someone, we're essentially giving away parts of ourselves. We start to believe that our happiness, our sense of completeness, our very identity depends on this other person. Jung called this psychological inflation. We inflate our partner with qualities that actually belong to us, and in doing so, we deflate ourselves. But here's the cruel irony. The moment our beloved fails to live up to these projections, and they always will because they're human beings, not gods, we experience what Jung called the collision with reality. This collision isn't just disappointing, it's devastating because we realize we've been living in a fantasy. And if you think this sounds complicated, wait until you hear what Jung discovered about why we choose the partners we do. It's going to blow your mind. The pain we feel in these moments isn't really about our partner's failure to be perfect. It's about our own psychological fragmentation. We've split ourselves in half, giving the good parts to our partner and keeping the bad parts for ourselves. When the relationship struggles, we don't just lose a person, we lose access to parts of ourselves that we've forgotten how to access independently. Jung observed that people tend to project their anima or animus the feminine aspect in men and the masculine aspect in women, onto their romantic partners. This is why romantic love feels so different from other kinds of love. It's not just about companionship or even attraction. It's about psychological completion. Now here's where Jung's insights get really deep and somewhat uncomfortable. He believed that we don't just project our positive lost qualities onto our partners, we also engage in what he called shadow projection. The shadow, in Jungian psychology, represents all the parts of ourselves that we've rejected, denied, or refused to acknowledge. When you find yourself inexplicably annoyed by your partner's habits, when you judge them harshly for behaviors that seem minor to others, when you feel triggered by aspects of their personality that they might not even be aware of, Jung would say, you're not really reacting to them. You're reacting to your own shadow, reflected back at you. Let's say your partner is someone who speaks their mind freely, never filtering their thoughts. If you find this incredibly irritating, Jung would suggest that you examine what this might say about your own relationship with self-expression. Perhaps you've spent your life carefully controlling what you say, suppressing your authentic voice. Your partner's freedom to speak triggers you not because it's objectively wrong, but because it represents a part of yourself you've disowned. This is why arguments in intimate relationships can feel so intense and disproportionate. You're not just fighting about dishes or money or whose turn it is to walk the dog. You're fighting with aspects of yourself that you've tried to eliminate, projected onto the person closest to you. Jung discovered that intimate relationships are essentially shadow work laboratories. Your partner will inevitably do things that trigger your deepest insecurities, your most carefully hidden wounds, your most avoided aspects of self. This isn't accidental. It's how the psyche forces us to confront and integrate parts of ourselves we've been running from, but Jung's most shocking discovery about love and pain was yet to come. What he found about the wounded healer phenomenon in relationships will make you see every argument you've ever had in a completely new light. The pain of love, according to Jung, is often the pain of self-recognition. When your partner hurts you, disappoints you, or fails to meet your needs, they're holding up a mirror to parts of yourself that you haven't fully accepted or developed. The rage you feel toward them is often rage toward yourself. For your own limitations, your own fears, your own unhealed wounds. Jung introduced a concept that revolutionized how we understand relationship dynamics, the wounded healer. He observed that we are unconsciously drawn to partners who carry wounds that mirror our own, but in different ways. We're attracted to people who can potentially heal us, but we're also drawn to those who will inevitably wound us in familiar ways. This creates what Jung called the therapeutic relationship within romantic partnerships. Each person becomes both healer and patient for the other. Your partner's presence in your life will activate your deepest wounds, bringing them to the surface where they can finally be addressed and healed. But this process is excruciating because it requires facing parts of yourself you've spent years trying to avoid. Think about your most significant relationships. Haven't you noticed that the people you love most deeply are often the ones who know exactly how to push your buttons? Jung would say this isn't coincidence or cruelty, it's psychological wisdom. Your unconscious mind draws you to people who will force you to confront your unfinished emotional business. For example, if you grew up feeling invisible or unimportant, you might find yourself in relationships with partners who are inconsistent with their attention and affection. This will be incredibly painful, but it will also force you to develop your own sense of self-worth rather than depending on external validation. The pain serves a purpose. It's your psyche's way of saying, this wound needs healing, and this relationship is going to force you to address it. Jung believed that most relationship conflicts aren't really about the surface issues couples fight about. They're about each person trying to heal their childhood wounds through their partner. while simultaneously triggering their partner's wounds. This creates a complex dance of healing and hurting that can feel overwhelming and confusing. And if you're wondering whether this means we're all doomed to hurt the people we love, Jung had something fascinating to say about how we can break these cycles. Stay with me because this next part could transform your relationships forever. The wounded healer dynamic explains why love can feel so addictive and yet so painful. Your partner becomes like a drug. They have the power to soothe your deepest wounds when they're present and attentive, but they also have the power to activate your worst fears when they're distant or unavailable. This isn't healthy love. It's what Jung called unconscious love, love driven by unhealed wounds rather than conscious choice. But Jung didn't leave us trapped in this cycle of unconscious wounding. He discovered that the pain of love serves a crucial psychological function. It initiates what he called the individuation process, the journey toward becoming a complete, authentic, integrated human being. Individuation, according to Jung, is the process of integrating all aspects of yourself, the light and the shadow, the masculine and feminine, the conscious and unconscious, into a unified whole. And intimate relationships, with all their pain and complexity, are one of the most powerful catalysts for this process. When your partner triggers you, when love hurts, when relationships force you to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself. These aren't signs that love is failing, they're signs that love is working. The pain is your psyche's way of saying, there's work to be done here, there are parts of yourself that need integration. Jung observed that people who avoid this psychological work, who run from relationship to relationship trying to escape the pain, never actually heal. They just repeat the same patterns with different people. But those who lean into the discomfort, who use their relationship struggles as opportunities for self-discovery and growth, eventually transcend the wounded healer dynamic. This is what Jung meant when he said that the goal of love isn't happiness, it's wholeness. A truly mature relationship isn't one where two people make each other happy all the time. It's one where two individuals support each other's journey toward becoming complete human beings, even when that process is uncomfortable or challenging. But here's the part that most people miss about Jung's teachings on love, and it's the key to transforming pain into profound connection. This insight alone could change everything about how you approach relationships. The individuation process requires what Jung called holding the tension of opposites. In relationships, this means learning to hold love and frustration simultaneously, to accept your partner's light and shadow, to embrace both connection and independence. Most people try to resolve this tension by choosing one side or the other, but Jung discovered that true growth happens when we learn to live with paradox. When you can love someone while also accepting their limitations, when you can feel hurt without making your partner responsible for fixing it, when you can maintain your individual identity while also being deeply connected, that's when you've begun to transform unconscious love into conscious love. Jung was fascinated by medieval alchemy, not for its literal pursuit of turning lead into gold, but for its psychological metaphors. He saw intimate relationships as alchemical processes, transformative journeys where the base metals of our unhealed wounds and unconscious patterns could be transformed into the gold of conscious love and psychological wholeness. In alchemical terms, every relationship goes through distinct phases. The first phase, which Jung called nigredo or blackening, corresponds to the disillusionment that follows the initial romantic projection phase. This is when you start to see your partner's flaws, when the fantasy begins to crumble, when love starts to hurt. Most people think this means the relationship is failing, but Jung saw it as the necessary beginning of real love. The second phase, albedo or whitening, involves the painful process of withdrawing projections and seeing both yourself and your partner clearly. This is where the real work happens. learning to love someone as they actually are, not as you imagined them to be. It's also where you reclaim the parts of yourself you've projected onto them. The final phase, rubedo or reddening, represents the integration of opposites, the marriage of conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, self and other. Relationships that survive the alchemical process become what Jung called conjunctio, a sacred union where two whole individuals choose to create something greater than themselves. But here's the crucial point. This alchemical transformation requires the pain, the heat of conflict, the pressure of disappointment, the friction of two different personalities rubbing against each other. These aren't obstacles to love. They're the very forces that make psychological transformation possible. And if you're starting to see your own relationships differently, wait until you hear what Jung discovered about why we keep attracting the same types of partners. This pattern isn't random. It's your unconscious mind trying to heal something specific. Jung noticed that people tend to unconsciously choose partners who will recreate the emotional dynamics of their childhood, particularly the unresolved dynamics with their parents. This isn't masochism. It's the psyche's attempt to heal old wounds by recreating them in a context where healing might be possible. If you find yourself repeatedly attracted to emotionally unavailable partners, Jung would suggest examining your early relationships with caregivers. If you keep ending up with controlling partners, look at the power dynamics in your family of origin. The pain you experience in these patterns isn't punishment, it's information. Your unconscious is trying to tell you something important about what needs healing. One of Jung's most profound insights about love and pain involves what he called the anima and animus, the feminine aspect within men and the masculine aspect within women. Jung believed that we all carry both masculine and feminine energies within us, but we often project the less developed aspect onto our romantic partners. When a man falls in love, Jung suggested, he's often falling in love with his own animus, his capacity for emotion, intuition, and relational connection projected onto a woman. When a woman falls in love, she might be projecting her animus, her capacity for assertion, logic, and independence, onto a man. This creates intense attraction, but also sets up inevitable pain when the partner fails to perfectly embody these projected qualities. The pain of love, from this perspective, is often the pain of discovering that you've given away essential parts of yourself to another person. When your partner disappoints you, you're not just losing them, you're losing access to parts of your own psyche that you've forgotten how to access independently. Jung worked with countless patients who experienced devastating heartbreak when relationships ended, not just because they missed their partner, but because they literally didn't know how to access their own capacity for the qualities they had projected. Men who had projected their emotional intelligence onto women found themselves feeling numb and disconnected. Women who had projected their strength and assertiveness onto men found themselves feeling powerless and lost. But Jung saw this pain as an opportunity for what he called anima-animus integration. The crisis of lost love forces us to develop within ourselves the qualities we had been seeking in others. The man learns to access his own emotional depth. The woman learns to access her own power. The pain of separation becomes the catalyst for psychological completion. This is why Jung believed that the healthiest relationships involve two people who have done significant work to integrate their own anima and animus. They come together not because they need each other to feel complete, but because they choose to share their completeness with another complete person. Jung observed that when people successfully integrate these aspects of themselves, their capacity for love deepens dramatically, but their desperate need for romantic validation diminishes. They can love more freely because they're not depending on their partner to provide access to essential parts of themselves. The pain of love teaches us that we are more complex and complete than we imagined. Every heartbreak is an invitation to reclaim projected aspects of ourselves and become more whole. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious adds another layer to understanding why love hurts so much. He believed that we all share inherited psychological patterns, archetypes, that influence how we experience love and relationships. These ancient patterns, developed over thousands of years of human evolution, shape our romantic experiences in ways we're rarely conscious of. One of the most powerful archetypes Jung identified was what he called the divine marriage, or sacred union, the deep human longing for perfect, transcendent love. This archetypal pattern creates unrealistic expectations for romantic relationships. We unconsciously expect our partners to fulfill the role of the divine beloved, to complete us in ways that no human being possibly can. When our partners inevitably fail to live up to these archetypal expectations because they're human, not gods, we experience profound disappointment and pain. But Jung saw this pain as the collision between archetypal fantasy and human reality. The hurt forces us to distinguish between the timeless patterns of the collective unconscious and the actual flawed, beautiful human being standing in front of us. Another archetypal pattern Jung explored was the wounded lover, the idea that love necessarily involves suffering. This archetype appears in countless myths, stories, and cultural traditions. From Romeo and Juliet to countless songs about heartbreak, human culture has always recognized that love and pain are intimately connected. Jung suggested that this isn't cultural pessimism, it's archetypal wisdom. The collective unconscious knows something that our conscious minds often resist, that love is not primarily about comfort and happiness. It's about transformation, growth, and the expansion of consciousness. And transformation always involves some degree of death and rebirth, dissolution, and reconstitution. The pain of love activates what Jung called the wounded healer archetype within us. We become capable of deeper compassion, greater wisdom, and more authentic connection through our romantic wounds. Every heartbreak initiates us further into the mysteries of human experience. Jung noticed that people who try to avoid the painful aspects of love, who jump from relationship to relationship seeking only pleasure and validation, never activate these deeper archetypal patterns. They remain psychologically adolescent, never accessing the profound growth that comes through embracing love's full spectrum of experience. But those who allow themselves to be changed by love's pain tap into archetypal energies that have been guiding human development for millennia. They become what Jung called individuated, fully realized human beings who have integrated both the light and shadow aspects of love. So how do we break free from these unconscious patterns that create so much pain in love? Jung's answer was revolutionary. We don't try to eliminate the pain. We develop consciousness around it. We learn to see our relationship dynamics clearly, to recognize our projections, and to take responsibility for our own psychological completion. The first step in Jung's approach is what he called projection withdrawal. This involves the difficult work of recognizing which qualities you've attributed to your partner that actually belong to you. When you find yourself thinking your partner is the source of your happiness, your creativity, your sense of purpose, or your emotional stability, that's a projection that needs to be withdrawn. Jung developed a simple but powerful exercise for this work. Whenever you find yourself extremely attracted to or repelled by something in your partner, ask yourself, how might this quality exist within me? If you're attracted to your partner's confidence, explore your own relationship with confidence. If you're repelled by their neediness, examine your own unmet needs. The second step involves what Jung called shadow integration, learning to accept and work with the parts of yourself you've been rejecting. Often, the qualities in your partner that trigger you most intensely are qualities you possess but have disowned. Learning to embrace these aspects of yourself reduces the charge around your partner's behavior. Jung also emphasized the importance of what he called active imagination, consciously dialoguing with the archetypal figures that live within your psyche. Instead of unconsciously living out the wounded lover archetype, you can consciously engage with it, learning from its wisdom while not being controlled by its patterns. And here's Jung's most powerful insight about transforming love from a source of pain into a path of healing. This could be the key to everything you've been searching for in relationships. The third step involves developing what Jung called differentiation, the ability to remain yourself while also being in intimate connection with another person. This means learning to feel your own feelings without blaming your partner for causing them, to meet your own needs while also being generous in relationship, and to maintain your own center while also being open to influence and change. Jung discovered that when two people commit to this conscious approach to love, when they see their relationship as a mutual individuation project rather than just a source of comfort and validation, something magical happens. The relationship becomes what he called opus contra naturam, a work against nature, meaning a conscious creation that transcends ordinary biological and psychological drives. In Jung's final analysis, the pain of love serves a sacred purpose in human development. It's not an unfortunate side effect of opening our hearts. It's an essential catalyst for psychological and spiritual evolution. Every moment of romantic suffering is an invitation to become more conscious, more whole, more authentically ourselves. Jung believed that the universe is constantly trying to evolve consciousness through individual human beings, and intimate relationships are one of the primary vehicles for this evolution. When love hurts, it's because your psyche is being reorganized at the deepest levels. Old patterns are dying, new capacities are emerging, and consciousness is expanding. This doesn't make the pain less real or less difficult. Jung never minimized the genuine suffering that comes with love, but he offered a radically different framework for understanding that suffering not as evidence that something is wrong, but as evidence that something profoundly right is happening at the level of psychological development. The people who hurt you in love aren't villains in your story. They're teachers, initiators, catalysts for your own evolution, and you play the same role in their lives. This mutual initiation through pain is what Jung called the conjunctio, the sacred marriage of two souls committed to mutual transformation. Jung observed that individuals who embrace this understanding of love's pain become capable of what he called conscious love, love that includes suffering without being destroyed by it, love that transforms rather than simply indulges, love that serves the evolution of consciousness rather than just personal gratification. These individuals develop what Jung called psychological objectivity, the ability to observe their own romantic dynamics with compassion and clarity. They can feel deeply hurt by their partner's actions, while also recognizing the archetypal patterns being activated. They can experience intense projection, while also knowing its projection. This kind of consciousness doesn't eliminate pain, it transforms the relationship to pain. Instead of being a victim of love's wounds, you become a conscious participant in love's transformative power. Every argument becomes an opportunity for deeper understanding. Every disappointment becomes a chance to withdraw projections and reclaim disowned aspects of yourself. Jung's ultimate message about love and pain is one of profound hope. The very experiences that hurt us most in relationships are also the ones most capable of healing us and helping us evolve. Love doesn't hurt because it's broken. Love hurts because it's working, dissolving our illusions and expanding our consciousness in service of our highest potential. If this deep dive into Carl Jung's understanding of why love hurts so much has opened your eyes to new possibilities in your own relationships, there's so much more to explore. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell, because next week we're diving even deeper into Jung's revolutionary insights about how to transform romantic pain into conscious love. And if you want to continue this journey of understanding, right now, click on the video appearing on your screen where we explore Carl Jung's most powerful techniques for healing relationship wounds and creating authentic intimacy. The transformation of your love life starts with understanding, and that understanding starts now.